and then you offer it before the God and eat it. So the eating of animal then came out of idolatry. That this is what was going on in ancient times, and you're telling me Israel copied this to slaughter animals before the Lord for salvation, until it says that even the blood was flowing down the Kidron Valley. It's like a little river going on of blood. Even though the same chapter is telling you that the life of the flesh is in the blood, and they're spilling that much blood. Alright, hello again everyone. This is another lesson in my New Testament is Fake series, where I'm taking a look again at the sacrificial system as it relates to the new ultimate sacrifice of Jesus Christ, the Hebrew Son of God, where he talked about in John chapter 6 to eat my flesh and drink my blood. I talked about this recently, and I just want to mention it again in this lesson because I just came up on an older Bible that I've got here that I want to read from because it's worded a little bit different. But let me start out again with the words of Jesus from St. John chapter 6, verse 53 to 54. Then Jesus said unto them, Verily, verily, I say unto you, except ye eat the flesh of the Son of Man, and drink his blood, ye have no life in you. Whoso eateth my flesh, and drinketh my blood, hath eternal life, and I will raise him up in the last day. I showed already the problem with Jesus saying this, as it sounds like some other people have said, a bit cannibalistic, and you didn't really think anything much of it when you were a youngster in church. Like when I was a small boy, it just seemed normal, because when you were taught something in a religious setting, it usually seems believable, it seems normal, and you just go along with it. But once you get into looking at it some more, then you understand the problem that it has. Now, in Leviticus chapter 17, I'll read a little here. It says in verse 11, For the life of the flesh is in the blood, and I have given it to you upon the altar, to make an atonement for your souls, for it is the blood that maketh an atonement for the soul. All right? Now, the verse before that, in verse 10, he had said, I will even set my face against that soul that eateth blood, and cut him off from his people. But we have the Son of God who came to do the ultimate sacrifice on Calvary that is greater than all other sacrifices in the Torah, in the Old Testament of the Hebrews. And he actually, according to the New Testament, is the Son of God. And according to the teachings of some people who believe in the Torah or Old Testament, they say the prophecies speak of him as well. So that would then mean, if they are correct, that the prophecies are speaking of a Son of God who's going to come and give you instruction to eat his body and drink his blood against what his Father said. So that could not be correct, that these prophecies in the Old Testament are about him. And remember, these lessons are for you who are searching and you want to take a look at this whole Jesus belief some more, or this Messiah belief some more. You got to take a look at it for yourself. It is not good to hear just the regular messianic teachings, whether you're from the Hebrew side or Christian side. You need to hear another version, another side of views on the matter. And so that's why I'm teaching this. Now, if I look in this commentary, Interpreter's One Volume Commentary of the Bible, hear what it says about Leviticus chapter 17, the first few verses. It's talking about the slaughter of animals. This passage is of one piece from Leviticus 17 and presents two related laws. A, all slaughtered domestic animals must be brought to the altar as peace offerings. So all slaughtered domestic animals must be brought as peace offerings. Now, one kind of wonders, like when you have an animal in your house, that's your domestic animal, you don't usually, you in the Christian church or you in the Hebrew Israelite movement, I'm not saying it doesn't happen anywhere in the world, but at least you here in North America and down in the islands and so on, you don't usually slaughter your domestic animals like your cat or your dog, or for those of you who have sheep, if you live on some farm area or so on, you don't usually slaughter your animals. So what it's telling me is that even though according to the Torah the law is not done, or there would really be no way to transgress if the law is really done away with. So the law is not done. The Israelites might be in punishment, in captivity, but the only way they can be in punishment, and the captivity and punishment is being enforced daily up until now, is if the law is still in effect from the Torah, or you would be free of your captivity. So the magic about your punishment comes from the Torah, if I can use the word magic here. So the Torah worked some magic then to just, and that's a snap of my finger, put you into captivity. So if the law disappears because it is done, then there's nothing holding the magic together anymore, so you would be out of the captivity. You wouldn't be the bottom anymore. You wouldn't be in a curse anymore. If you are no longer in a curse, you are out of a curse. So you should revert, right? You should go back to a state of blessing and abundance and corn and wine. Now, I don't understand how the law can still be in effect and nobody is, at least where you are, offering these sacrifices anymore. I mean, people in prison, even though they are imprisoned, they still can sometimes do something to try to get themselves in a better spot. They can make some plea deal and so on, and they can have the case revisited, and they can tell the authorities that they want to give up some information and tell about the crime or whatever, and maybe they're not guilty and it will just show up what really happened, so the real guilty person will be found, so they'll be let out of prison. Or they could have been guilty, but by offering up some information that the authorities want, they might get their sentence reduced, or they might just be let go free, something like that. So even though you are already in punishment in prison, you can still do something that the law that is active in the land affords, so you can get yourself in a better position. Now, the law of the Lord is the greatest of all laws. I mean, this Torah created the entire cosmos. And that law apparently seems to be so weak that you in captivity in slave lands cannot just grab one of these sheep, one of these lamb, and just slaughter it and kill it. Right? And you say, well, we're not in Jerusalem, it won't be accepted here, but you're doing it at Passover in the hotels anyway, right? But even so, for the few Israelites that went back to Jerusalem, why don't they just slaughter one there? You see, the whole thing is silly. Even if you cannot slaughter it at the right spot in Jerusalem, or you're not supposed to slaughter it here in America or down in the Caribbean, if you are in prison and they don't want to hear your testimony anymore because it's too late now, whatever, or they don't believe you, and they're walking away from the bars at your jail, so you could still be grabbing onto to the bars from the cell and yelling out the information. And maybe as they walk away from you, once they hear you mention a point or two, they'd be like, wait, maybe that makes sense. So now they want to talk to you. Why? Because you're desperate, you want to get out, so you scream out, you yell out, you get some attention, and hopefully it will get you out of the spot you're in or reduce your sentence. So if you can grab a sheep in captivity for 400 years, and you say police are shooting you up in certain places and killing you, they're poisoning you, they're getting ready to put you in FEMA camps and so on, you're really looking forward to FEMA camps? Why don't you grab a sheep from somewhere and start slaughtering? Why don't you do that? And just show God, Yahweh, that you're desperate to get out of this spot. That you're desperate to get out of this spot. He might be like, well, stroking his beard up on his big chair up there. I don't know, like, your time isn't up yet. Yeah, but look, this has no blemish on it. Yeah, but you really pissed me off back there, a couple thousand years ago. You guys, your forefathers, they were really, really mean to me. Like, they broke every rule in the book. Like, they even sided with the enemy in all their pagan idol worship. They went really far. You got to pay a price for that. The nation has to serve some more time. But you're so desperate, you just slaughter them, and every high holiday you're killing these animals because you have to hide and do it from the law, but you're desperate. Even if the authorities are going to come and find you because you're killing up these animals for these religious reasons right here, it's like, you know that your God is more powerful than them. So if your God can only be pleased enough, just enough, he doesn't have to be pleased fully, but just pleased enough to take note of you and say, okay, well, maybe I'll give you a bly. Maybe I'll let you through this one, and okay, I'll just release you, but from your captivity, but make sure you never fall into this transgression again of idol worship and all that stuff, and breaking my Sabbath and so on. Because if the authorities are coming, they find out you're doing this stuff, and your God, Yahweh, is going to start responding to you now with biblical miracles of raining down hellfire and brimstone on them, so you can be free from your so-called Babylon and Egypt captivity. Then you don't care how fast they're approaching and they're coming up with SWAT teams and whatever they're coming with. As long as you know that Yahweh is going to respond and some death angel is going to pass through right away. That's all you need to know. Chop up that sheep. Because we're getting out of captivity. But you never do that. Why? Because somewhere inside of you, you know that the modern world does not tolerate such miracles. It is only a Bible story. You have never been able to prove, and no one around you has ever been able to prove, that any holy book, whether it's a Torah or some other holy book from some other religion anywhere on earth, no one is able to prove in 2018 that sacrificing to any god, whether of the Torah or any other god out there, can do miracles. No one. No one can prove that. Certainly no one has proved that. So these miracles from Yahweh, when you get your miracles in the Torah, they're just for the Torah. It's just a story in a big book. Or you would go ahead and do it. Because the Torah shows, even in the book of Judges, that whenever they were in captivity by the other nations, like the Mesopotamian kings, as soon as Israelites just decide to cry out and do whatever, they're still sinful. They're still sinful. But with sin, remember now I told you a long time ago that the high priest could not offer any sacrifice on behalf of Israel while being clean. Because he had to first offer his own sacrifice for himself. And you cannot offer a clean sacrifice to God when you are unclean yourself. So the moment the nation is in sin, the moment the nation is in transgression, everybody is like a filthy rag before the Most High, including the high priest. So if the high priest is filthy, how is he going to offer a pure sacrifice with a pure approach to God to clean himself up for a nation when everybody is like a filthy rag, including the high priest? So this is all just a big story. So a filthy high priest tries to slaughter an animal the way other nations slaughter their animals. And you say, now he's ready. Can't you see something is wrong with that? It says all slaughtered domestic animals must be brought to the altar as peace offerings. So you aren't offering up your cat or your dog or your fish that's swimming in your fish bowl in your house. No domestic creatures in your house are being offered up. And if you got a sheep, like I said, running around in your big farm backyard and you're a Hebrew, you're not offering that up either. You're not. Everybody on this earth pushes through stuff when they are able to. You get resistance movements, guerrilla warfare, you got terrorists, you got whatever other groups that are out there that do stuff. People push through stuff just to try to get in a better position. Even Europeans, that's what they did in order to conquer native peoples. They know it was wrong, but they're like, look, we need to better ourselves. We got to push through. Even when they're fighting the Zulus and everybody in South Africa, and they're like 100 years ago, and now they're giving back land in South Africa, they took a big hit, even from the Zulus. But what? They're pushing it through. They'll take any risk to get on top. And you will not take a risk to slaughter your sheep in your backyard. As a Hebrew that owns some sheep, you won't take that risk to restore the nation? Why? Either the book doesn't work, it's just a story, or there is no Hebrew that truly believes the book in his heart. Because if you had the faith, you would push it through and do it. Everybody else on earth is pushing through their stuff to get their country, their nation, and so on in a better spot. But Hebrews just say, we will just believe. But in the Torah, in the book of Judges, it showed that they believed and they took action, cried out and did the whatever, and it came. Book of Ezra, they believed, so they took action and they were able to leave Babylon. Why you don't do it today? And you got sheep. Even in Africa, Hebrews are talking about they're getting sheep and they're whatever, starting for high holidays. Why they don't do it to get deliverance then? They're doing it to say we're keeping Passover. Why they don't do it to say, Yahweh, this time, this year, we're doing it to be free? Instead, they're crying out Fulani are trying to kill them and all kinds of other groups there. Now, I point out here, as he mentioned domestic animals in this commentary, that one of the things I'm going to look into, I've come across it before, but I need to look at it some more. And I got so many lessons like it's just almost a joke. It's just almost a joke. Like I'm on serious backlog here. Like I got probably, with no exaggerations, probably 1,000 lessons I can teach. I can teach one lesson every day, and 1,000 is just being very conservative. Like when I say I got lessons, I just made up probably 3 more new lessons this morning. They're not complete, but one of them is. So I'm telling you, there's just no way with covering that many lessons that I'm not seeing a trend here in the teachings of the scriptures. People are seeing stuff that's wrong, but they continue to teach the old stuff. That doesn't make sense. Now, one of the next lessons that will come at some later point, no rush for it, so you can go ahead and teach it too, that's great, is that in old times, it seems to me that animal offerings were made out of idol worshipping people, like what you call like pagan worship. And the eating of animals came out of idol worship. You would kill the animal to eat it before a god. You'd kill the animal to eat it before a god, and then you offer it before the god and eat it. So the eating of animal then came out of idolatry. So now you're telling me that Israel is going to kill an animal and eat it before God, and that's not an idolatrous system to worship Yahweh? It is. Just look at history. Look at history of this kind of thing. And I've told you already in other lessons that what the Torah does is it makes the Israelites make certain changes to their procedures, their rituals, to make it look set apart. Like I told you already how you would have priests doing similar stuff, similar sacrifices, but the Israelite now would have his own kind of clothes that look a little bit different from the other priests, so that he looks like a set-apart priest before the Lord God. It's just still clothes. and he's just another priest like all the priests that existed before there was anything called Israel. So Israel is using a priesthood system that existed before Israel became a nation. This is just a big, big trick. So if pagan nations were eating animals as a new thing when people apparently seem to have been eating vegetation and so on before that, when earth was new, if I might say that, if it ever was new, because at this point I don't even know what to think anymore. I'm not even sure earth was created. I know you're going to laugh at that, but that's something I'm looking into as well, because now I'm not sure if there was even a creator. Now there could have been, so don't laugh too early. I'm not saying there was no creator. I'm just saying, because the earth seems to me to be eternal. If it is, if that is correct, how could it have been created? Because you see, they tell us that, anyway, let me just move on here, because I'm going to, but look, so they're eating animals as worship unto other gods, but they would consume the blood as well. So what the Hebrews did now, in order to show you that this is set apart from quote-unquote God, is to slip in a difference there and have their God say, but do not consume the blood. So now they look like they are holy because they're doing it different. We don't eat the blood, but those people over there, they're pagans, they eat the blood with the meat. So we are the righteous ones. When you're really killing and eating animals as something to be done after those other nations were doing it before there was an Israel. But Israel just says, our God says don't eat the meat, so we're the righteous, we're the priests on earth. So now it goes on here to say the blood must not be eaten. The centralization of worship demanded in the decode was practical only if slaughter for food was permitted without sacrifice. You see that? Because it's letting you know that there's some kind of difference in how the whole thing is being handled. You can slaughter food for sacrifice, which was normal, but now they're talking about slaughtering food that was not for sacrifice, just for you to eat. So you see how it grows to just becoming normal, regular eating of meat, not just a sacrificing alone, because they would eat the animals as part of a sacrificial worship system to a god. But then later on now, as the earth grew some more, it then became, you can just kill and eat the animal just for food. So the Torah commentary here is showing you two things were in mind. Now, as I continue this lesson, No One Among You, I want to read, just because it has some different wording here, for more illumination in your mind as you consider this topic of the sacrificial system of the Torah, and as it relates to this so-called Hebrew Messiah coming and dying for your sins, while telling you to eat his flesh, like people did in ancient times when they were worshipping pagan gods by eating flesh, before there was anything called Israel and anything called the Torah, and telling you as well to drink his blood, just like people did in ancient times of drinking or consuming the blood that was a part of the animal when they were worshipping idols, before there was anything called an Israel or a Torah or a Moses going up on Mount Sinai. This here is it's a Catholic Bible, 1971 to 1972 edition of the New American Bible. And look at how it words it for Leviticus chapter 17. I'll read a couple verses. I'll just start from verse 8 and probably read, 4 or 5 verses. Tell them therefore, anyone, whether of the house of Israel or of the aliens residing among them. So I think you might see strangers, that's normal to see in the King James or so. So he's saying even a resident alien or an outsider that's not a born Israelite, like born in the land and living in the land, but someone just coming from outside who's not an Israelite that's living in the land. So anyone as an alien residing among them as well, who offers a holocaust or sacrifice. Now you see, he said holocaust or sacrifice. Now isn't that strange that holocaust is usually associated with some kind of a vicious, widespread killing, excuse me. To put that word there is just letting you know the picture of this in ancient times, that when these pagan nations were doing it, that Israel copied this sacrificial system from to use unto the Lord God. It's showing you that you would have like a massive amount of people in some kind of a sacrificial frenzy. And picture like Night of the Living Dead or something like that, or The Walking Dead or so, with lots of zombies and blood all over them, and they're just like zombied out and they're coming after you. This is how people were just gathering around doing these ancient animal sacrificial stuff, rituals, right? So it was a destruction or a slaughter of the animals. So by using the word Holocaust, they're trying to get you to think here that this is what was going on in ancient times. And you're telling me Israel copied this to slaughter animals before the Lord for salvation, until it says that even the blood was flowing down the Kidron Valley. It's like a little river going on of blood. Even though the same chapter is telling you that the life of the flesh is in the blood, and they're spilling that much blood. And the Creator put the blood inside the body, because that's where it belongs. Notice you don't find blood just normally running around anywhere in creation, like how you see ear. Well, you can't really see ear, but like how ear just moves around. You don't see blood just moving around like that. Blood doesn't just run around everywhere like that. You see blood just traveling on the ground in some S shape like a snake or something. Blood, oh, there's blood right there running, blood, 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 blood. But the blood ran down the Kidron Valley. So they are removing, these high priests, removing the blood out of many, many bodies in this holocaust or slaughter of animals to worship God. This is just an audio video commentary here. Instead of buying my book in the store, you're just listening to it. This is the commentary you're hearing, you're listening to right now. This is the Bible study, or a Torah study if you prefer. Now, look at the word Holocaust. Now, it means destruction or slaughter on a mass scale, especially caused by fire or nuclear war. They're telling you this is just like crazy, like straight out destruction. So that's what the Hebrew priests were doing, a crazy destruction of animals and animal life and life itself that contains blood, even though the Creator said the life of the flesh is in the blood. And he put the flesh, he wrapped the blood in flesh so that the blood would be contained in the body, whether it's your body or the body of an animal, because he wants it to stay in there. He wrapped the blood in flesh so that the blood would be contained in the body, whether it's your body or the body of an animal, because he wants it to stay in there. Normally, if you pass out blood or so, you start to get concerned. I wonder if something's wrong with me. I want to go see a doctor or something like that. You feel sick. Or you get a cut, you try to put a band-aid on it to stop it. Why? Because you know blood does not belong outside the body of flesh, whether it's you as a human or an animal. Your cat or your dog gets a cut, they're fighting, they bleed, you start to dress it. Because blood belongs inside the body. But Hebrew set-apart high priests in the Torah made a special day by instruction of their God, according to the Torah, to spill blood all over, running down a valley. That picture is fine with you? Running down a valley. That picture is fine with you? The reason why the Creator made blood enclosed in the body is because he wanted it to remain there. Or he would have put it someplace in your mouth like saliva that you just spit out every now and then. The reason why the Creator made blood enclosed in the body is because he wanted it to remain there. Or he would have put it someplace in your mouth like saliva that you just spit out every now and then. So, no one among you, even aliens residing among you, who offers a holocaust, that's a mass destruction or sacrifice, without bringing it to entrance. So sacrifice is a mass destruction, a mass killing. So Hebrew Israelites, along with their high priests, even under Moses and so on, and under David and all of them, were conducting mass destruction of animals to worship the Lord God. Because see, if I was writing a Bible, that's how I would put it. Now look at all the Bible versions. They word it their own way, right? For you to get an understanding, a clearer picture of what was going on. That's all I'm doing. This is an audio commentary of the Bible, and I'm giving you another version of the Bible then, for you to understand what was going on. Because no true, proper, real priest of the God of the Hebrews would have ever done a single sacrifice in the entire life of biblical history, or the Bible, including the Torah, is fake. They could not have done that to be set apart, because that does not set them apart from other nations who were doing sacrifices. Because that does not set them apart from other nations who were doing sacrifices. That means that every single Bible dictionary and Bible commentary that you have ever looked into for your entire life, including the ones that cost hundreds of dollars, every one of them have been lying to you all along the way. Every one of them. Because they're telling you that this, and because they show you the pictures, this is the altar that they were offering unto God because God told them that. No. You see, they mix lie with truth. So you got the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Because it's true that they were offering on these altars, but it is not true that God would have told them to do this if God is the creator. So it's true that they would have done this stuff, but it is not true that the supposed creator would have told them to do this, because it came out of pagan worship to offer animals and eat them in a frenzy before the Lord. So the Bible dictionaries and commentaries are all lying to you with all those pictures and write-ups. This is what the Hebrews offered these sacrifices on. They're lying to you and telling you that that was the right way. So the lie is that it was the right thing. Because it could not have been right. If you just think it through, it could not have been right to offer these sacrifices like this on these altars. So the truth is that when they were living right, the truth would have been, if the Bible is true, then the truth would have been that they did not offer sacrifices at all, even once when they were living right. Even once when they were living right. But all the Bible dictionaries and commentaries that give the write-ups and pictures to show you these ancient altars that they used to offer sacrifices are all showing you pictures of when they offer sacrifices because they were living in transgression. Because they were living in transgression. That's the lie. They show you the pictures of transgression with the altars to make you think that that was the normal, good, holy, set-apart living. No, the set-apart living would have been pictures with no altars of Israel just living in the land. Pictures with no altars of Israel just living in the land. Show us some pictures of them cutting some crop and growing some vegetables and so on and picking some fruits. That would have been when they were living right. But all these pictures that show altars when they were offering sacrifices and blowing up smoke to God, those are the pictures of transgression, and we have been taught that that was the right living. So the very picture that guaranteed captivity, the pictures of the altars, is what they're telling you was the right thing and trying to tell you to get back to it to go and offer sacrifice in some third temple. No, it's wrong. And notice Adam, the first man to have met God, never was shown offering up a sacrifice. But if he fell, then when you see the children start to offer sacrifice until they kill, one killed the other, Cain and Abel, it's telling you that in his life he fell and his woman, Eve. So it's telling you that sin was generated right there in that family line. Now the children start to show the sin, offering sacrifices and killing each other, or one killing the other. So death starts to take hold. But the original man who had the original instruction, if you want to be fair, you would say, in all reality, in all truthfulness, Adam never participated in offering sacrifices. He never did. Unless you're going to read some extra biblical book and say, yeah, see here he did it, the book of Adam or the book of whatever. But Adam never did that. And I already told you already that supposedly saying God offered sacrifice in Genesis chapter 3, it did not say he was performing sacrifice. I thought about that and I'm going to talk about that some more some other time. But anyway, let me move on with reading this. So Leviticus 17 continuing. So the holocaust or sacrifice without bringing it to the entrance of the meeting tent to offer it to the Lord shall be cut off from his kinsmen. And if anyone, so you see that entrance meeting to offer to the Lord, that's the same thing that other pagan worshippers would do with the animals in their religions, in their lands. There's nothing set apart and unique about this God or this people of Israel in respect to this. Nothing. So why call them set apart? Because we've just been simply taught to call them set apart, but they were not. After all they did and the millions of sacrifices over their course of their biblical lifetime, and they're still being kicked out of the land, you mean after millions and millions, probably billions of sacrifices, God can't even say, you did something no other nation on earth has done. They offer their sacrifices to everybody else, but you offered me millions or billions. You know, I'm going to throw you a rope for that. It's telling you that after all of that they did, there was no power in the sacrifices to save them. Like you're saving up for a rainy day, you mean a couple of those sacrifices couldn't have gone for a rainy day? They can cash in their chips and so on. Look, we know it's captivity time, 400 years, but look how many sacrifices we did. Doesn't that buy us anything? There's no power in sacrifice. That's what I'm trying to tell you. It doesn't guarantee you anything because God's not in it. This is true Bible study right here. Listen and learn and consider it for yourself. So be cut off. Verse 10, and if anyone, whether of the house of Israel or of the aliens residing among them, partakes of any blood, I will set myself against that one who partakes of blood and will cut him off from among his people. Since the life of a living body is in its blood, I have made you put it on the altar so that atonement may thereby be made for your own lives, because it is a blood. Now, where's the set apartness? Because that's exactly what was in the mind of all the other people in the pagan religions. They were getting their own atonement, even if they didn't call it atonement. It's the same concept with the killing and the slaughtering and the drawing of blood from these animals and the burning of the animals on the altar and so on. The slitting of the throat. It's the same thing Israel is doing. How does that give Israel atonement, but it doesn't give the others? Because it is the blood as the seat of life that makes atonement. So as a seat of life, he's saying, have some respect for this. But Israelites splash it all the way down on their garments, on their foot, on their shoes, and down the Kidron Valley. And while cutting up the animals, they're walking, stepping in the blood all along. They're stepping in the seat of blood. Is that respectful to that which gives you life? Where's the sacredness and the respect for the life that the Creator put in the animal when you slash up and spill the blood all over and you're stepping and walking in it? If you drop your food and start walking around in it, and somebody just made that food for you, do you respect the work that they just did in preparing all that food for you? So the Creator makes blood and puts it in an animal. You chop up the animal, cut him up and start walking around and stepping in the blood and mix up the dirt in the blood and so on as you step and walk in it. And that's respect for the sacredness of and mystery of life. But a Hebrew high priest did all this on behalf of the nation of Israel. That is why I have told the Israelites, no one among you, not even a resident alien, may partake of blood. And I've showed you in a couple of videos already that you're still consuming blood when you eat the meat. But he says, no one among you will do this. No one. Anyone hunting, whether of the Israelites or of the aliens residing among them, who catches an animal or a bird, and so he goes on, you shall not partake of the blood of enemy. So he says, no one among you may partake of blood. So do not consume any blood. So when he says here now, the life of a living body is in its blood, and don't eat any of these, the blood. What the understanding really is don't consume any blood or creature, because the creature cannot be separated from its blood. Because when the creature starts to lose its blood, it dies. So the blood and the flesh is one package that should not be divided, or the creature will die. Just like you can't separate your liver, your lungs, and your kidney from your body and your heart, you're going to die. It's all one package. They're different organs, but it's all a part of you. Take out your blood, you're done for. So not consuming blood really tells you, do not bring the animal to death and then consuming the blood and eat the animal, because you know you're doing it just to eat the animal, which is a part of ancient Baal worship, to eat animals before a god. That's why even in the New Testament you have the Apostle Paul talking about eating meat sacrificed to idols, because that's where they were getting it from. You say Paul was a Hebrew as well. So what is really telling you is that he was aware that Israelites from ancient times were doing ancient pagan rituals of eating animals that were dedicated unto idols. That's really what it was. It was just that kind of stuff. Dedicated unto a god. In this case, their god was Yahweh, but they did it unto other idols as well, because we know they were worshipping false gods. Right? That's why the commentary had said that I read, I already closed it here, but it made a distinction there between how you handle, like whether it's just for normal eating for dinner, or you're doing it unto a god, which is Yahweh. But like I said to you before, they were doing it many times to other gods as well. So Israelites were steeped into the blood at Kidron Valley that flowed down like a flood or a river, the same way they were steeped into worshipping with animals and with animal death gods of the nations that they picked up and that they made, as well as the God of Israel, Yahweh. They used animals to worship God. That's what I'm trying to tell you. The Hebrew Israelite high priest did this and led the nation downhill. But he says, no one among you, no one should partake of any blood, which means no one should eat animals, because if the life of the flesh of a living animal, like it says it here, is in the blood, read that part again for you. Verse 11, since the life of a living body is in its blood. So the life of a living body. So now we know how the blood works to make a body be living. The blood has to wash all throughout the flesh, or move all throughout the body. Like water in a flood just rushing through, your heart pumps the blood and squirts the blood through the veins and through arteries and so on. And, well, they say, I guess the heart is a valve, not necessarily a pump, but it's trying to say it's moving through, right? Or like a strong river just gushing and pushing water through. That's how, like a river of blood just pushing through your veins, washing through the flesh or the meat of your own body. It's the same thing with the animal. So then the blood is washing and carrying nutrients and oxygen and so on throughout your entire body. It's washing the flesh or the meat in the body of the animal, same with humans. It's washing the meat all over with blood. So as far as the text is concerned, the meat that you're eating before the Lord has already, even if you drain out the excess, it has already washed or contaminated the flesh with blood. It has washed the meat, it has covered the meat, it has given life to the meat. The presence of that which is blood is now intrinsically linked, might I say, with meat. So no matter how well you wash it off, the blood has become part of the meat. Just like they say, you are what you eat. And you look into these Indian teachings now, Hindu stuff, and they're talking about you eat a banana, you basically become that banana and so on. You eat a mango, you become the mango and so on. Well, if your blood is going all throughout your flesh, same with the animal, then the flesh is made up of blood. The meat is made up of blood. Meat is made up of vitamins and oxygen and whatever else it's made up of. The meat of your body is made up of blood as well. So the moment you wash off the visible outer stuff, that which makes blood has already gotten into the, might I put it this way, the DNA of meat. So when you chomp into that, you are eating blood. The DNA of blood is in meat. And I'm just saying DNA just for effect there, but I think you understand what I'm trying to say, right? So there's no way to get away from it. And if you think that the blood carries oxygen and the nutrients and so on to the meat in the body or to the flesh parts of the body, then what it's saying is that the blood has infused the flesh or the meat of the human or animal body in order to make that meat continue to live. So when you kill the animal now, all that was blood has already been transferred into meat all the years of that creature's life. So the makeup of meat includes blood. So when you eat or bite into meat, you are consuming blood automatically. I know you can tell I'm working hard for this. To get this message through to you with every video I make on this stuff. Like, I just came upon this stuff. I didn't buy any book to find this out. I still yet have not read one single book. Of course, I've read a couple websites, but I never read even a website at first to figure this out. I was just reading the scriptures to find out stuff about this New Testament is Fake series about this Calvary Messiah, and started to look into the sacrificial system to see how it works, because I said if I'm going to understand Calvary to teach about my views on Calvary being fake, I have to understand the sacrificial system in the Old Testament or the Torah. And as I didn't even get far into the sacrificial system because I don't even understand sacrificial system fully. But just at the start of looking into the sacrificial system, I realized, something is intrinsically wrong with the sacrificial system of the Torah. It just popped into my mind just like that. And the whole thing just broke wide open. And then at that point now, once I understood it was wrong, then I burst open a couple commentaries and books I have here and look online and realize, oh my goodness, the commentaries and Bible dictionaries were lying to us all along. That Israel got away from offering altars unto the Lord. Offering sacrifices and altars unto the Lord. And that these are the altars where they were worshipping unto idols with these altars. And then as I looked at it some more, I realized, no, all the altars were wrong because there never should have been one altar for offering any kind of animal sacrifices. All the altars were wrong because there never should have been one altar for offering any kind of animal sacrifices. All of the dictionaries are lying to us. So you think of it on your own. No one among you should partake of blood in any kind of way, in any manner. No one among you. The blood helped to make the meat and to keep the meat alive, and transferred everything about blood into the meat all the years of that creature's life. So the meat is no longer able to be separated from blood. You can wash off the outside part of it, but like when you have some kind of let's say you get some strong chemical in some container, and they say, look, after this chemical, sometimes they put some biological sign or some, like you get even these nuclear signs and so on or whatever. And they say radiation poisoning or whatever. After you finish using this the chemical in this container, it should be destroyed. Do not recycle it for reuse. Do not try to wash it out and use it for any other reason, because whatever chemical was in it is just too dangerous. Even just the dried on residue, it has already dried off, even though you wash it with soap and water and some special stuff you bought from the store. It is so strong, so potent that it has contaminated the very lining and the very structure of the container, that you should not use it. And you're telling me you cleaned up the blood out of the meat so carefully in just 2 minutes to eat it before the Lord and it's fine? No. Think about it, people. No one among you shall consume or partake in any manner of blood. No sacrifice. So when this Calvary Messiah came to die for your sins, saying, eat my flesh and drink my blood, he's going against the so-called Father, who was the God of the Old Testament. Jesus was wrong. The apostles were wrong. Every Hebrew Israelite high priest in the Old Testament that led the nation to do these things, they were wrong. Moses was wrong. Aaron was wrong in all of this stuff. Every one of them was wrong, and I'm disappointed that people like Isaiah and Jeremiah and Elijah, even though I like some of these guys, Amos was my later one that I liked, but not even him. Like, they did not strike the nation down for these things. They all cursed the pagan sacrifices. But the trick is that the prophets didn't make you understand that the Hebrew sacrifice was a pagan sacrifice itself. That's where the prophets tricked us. They let you think that the other sacrifices were wrong, but they never let you identify that their own sacrifices were wrong, because all the prophets that taught this sacrificial system were all tricking you. The entire Torah is founded on deception. I'll see you in the next video.